To our first marriage seminar, virtual marriage seminar. Listen, it is a pleasure to bring this to you. There's a lot of things that are going on in the world, and needless to say, marriage is one of the things that are under attack right now. Um, I don't want to come before you and talk about, the Marriage Equality Act, although I could talk about that. But instead of criticizing or trying to, like attack what's going on, my goal here is to show you what a godly marriage looks like. And hopefully you can acclimate your life to that kind of expectation that God expects of you. So, in the first today, well, actually, it's going to be a 3-day seminar, virtual seminar. And we're going to focus on communication and intimacy. We're going to focus on career and finances, friends and family, because I think these are the major issues that are affecting marriages today. Listen, I can go biblical on you, or I can go secular, and I try to stay in the mainstream of things between both, because listen, we have to live in this world, and we can't always live in the Bible. We have to be up in the world but not of the world. And so actually what I'm going to be teaching you today, it's communication and intimacy. That's the first place that I feel like marriage gets attacked the most, because whenever we communicate things, it sometimes go unheard or misunderstood. And so for those of you who are going to be watching, actually, well, you know what? Let me share these slides with you, because I think this might be help to you. And if you can see, just let me know. Just put a thing in the chat and let me know you can see the slides. Looks like we're sharing. Okay. So as I said, I'm not going to be too churchy today. It's going to be mostly focused on communication. And that's my major. Excuse my throat. Trust me, all day I've been fine until I sit at this computer. All right. So my focus is going to be to help you understand how to be happily married. So today we will focus on communication and intimacy. And, many people are married, but they are not happy and they can't figure out why. And so it makes no sense to me for people to be married and not be happy, because after all, we get married to live happily ever after, right? Who wants to get married to live miserably ever after? Nobody wants to do that. And so my story is that I've been married for almost 26 years now. And one of the first things I established in my marriage was that we would talk about everything. And listen, I talk to my husband about everything. Even if he doesn't want to hear it, he's going to hear it. Sometimes it's like a TMI for my husband, because I tell him everything. And that's the happy medium for me. Like, I like to talk. He doesn't like to talk, but I refuse to let the sun go down on us while we're angry. That's what the Bible says, don't let the sun go down on your wrath. So I practice never to go to sleep, I go to bed angry. And so I'll tell you the story. A quick story. One day, I forgot what we were fighting about. Actually, no, it just came back to my mind. We were fighting about a box that I placed on his side of the closet. Okay. And if you know my husband, he everything is in a row. He has even his dirty clothes. This man fold his dirty clothes. Like me, no, this is going to be thrown in the wherever it belongs. That's where it's going to go. I'm not folding dirty clothes. He's neat and tidy, and I guess I'm kind of sort of neat, but not like my husband. So anyway, I put this box on his side of the closet, because I didn't have space on my side of the closet. Well, lo and behold, it starts an argument, because he wants me to move the box, and I didn't have any place else to put it, and I want the box to stay there. And so we started fighting over a box. Well, he ended up going to bed, and he's on the side of the bed like he's about to fall out because he doesn't want to touch me. Well, I got up out of that bed and I went around the other side of the bed, and I said, listen, we're not going to sleep being angry. We're going to talk to each other. So if you're angry, tell me what's going on. I know why you're angry about the box. Well, let's get up out of this bed and talk about it, because we're not going to sleep like this. That's the kind of person I am. And by the end of it, we started laughing and joking, and we weren't angry anymore. So, suffice to say, you listen, you got to talk about it. Okay. And so we're really going to talk about it today. As I said, our focus is going to be on communication, because I really believe that's where the intimacy in our marriage break down, because many people don't understand that their communication is affecting their intimacy in their marriage. And so the three main areas that we're going to focus on is speaking, listening, responding. And we're going to break down these three main areas to understand how they're affecting our relationship. So the first thing I want to define for you is that communication is a process, right? It's a process of transmitting information from one entity to another. And so there are different types and styles of communication. You can write something. So like nowadays, people love to text. Be careful how you text, because there are tones and things that get transmitted in letters. Well, and people don't write as much letter nowadays as like before. Like in our day, we used to write letters. Right now, y'all text everything and email everything and virtually write everything. And then in person and on the phone, verbal communication, visual communication. What are you sending? What kind of, even your facial expressions are visual communication. So you're communicating something to your spouse, right? And then there's the process of communication where you're encoding the words. Basically, you're formulating the message in your mind that you're going to tell your spouse. So say, for example, you're trying to communicate a piece of information to your spouse. You're encoding that information. You're in your mind, you're developing the message that you're about to tell your spouse. And remember, you got to remember your emotions are being encoded in this, because if he made you angry, that anger is going to come out in how you code the words that you are saying. So this communication process now, as I'm relating it to you, is I want you to be mindful of when you are coding your words, you're encoding your words to tell the person what you're about to tell them. Right. And then the message, remember your choice of words and your actions. And then those are also communicated, because it's what you said, your actions, your gestures, that's also a part of your message. So, like I said, the biggest problem in your marriage is communication, because it's the way how we're communicating the message that we're trying to get across. All right. So be careful of the words that you're using. All right. And then, so in other words, think about what you're about to say before you actually say it. So then decoding, okay, now say, for example, you're the wife and you encode and present a word or a message to your husband, and then he's now decoding, what did my wife mean by this that she just said? Okay, so she said this thing, and then there's like different noises. Actually, this communication model that I have here doesn't show it. I have another one for you. But when he's decoding, you got to remember he's seeing all the choice. He's hearing the choice of words that you use, the gestures that you use, and the tone of your voice. So now he's decoding. She's angry. She's going to tell her friends about this. She doesn't love me anymore. Maybe I'm a loser. And so he's trying to communicate. He's trying to decode what you said based on the actions and the emotions and the choice of words that he received. Now, once he decodes that information, then he has to respond to what you send him. And so this is this model that you're seeing here. And so keep this model in mind, that whenever you're communicating, you are, pay attention to how you are communicating and then how the person is responding to you. Right? And then there are many ways to communicate. One of the theorists puts it this way: we cannot not communicate. You're always going to communicate. So even if you go to bed and don't want to talk to your spouse, you're still communicating that you don't want to talk, right? You might be communicating that you are angry. You might be communicating that you don't feel well. Maybe you're communicating that you just want some time and space. And so sometimes that communication, it can send again, he has to decode, or she has to decode this information, these signals that you're sending to your spouse. And so while like I'm a communication major, I studied communication for 4 years. So I can go deeper into communication, but we won't have time to study everything that I studied for 4 years. But I'm bringing out some of the communication types and methods and techniques that might help you as you communicate with your spouse. Because, some of the thing is sometimes you can just throw your hands up and like, he doesn't understand what I'm talking about. And we just let things slide, and we just keep letting things slide. And all the while, what's happening is resentment is building up in our hearts. And right, ladies, if you're truthful, listen, I tell my husband that. I actually told him, I said, if you shut me down and don't allow me to express what I am feeling, then resentment is going to build up in my heart. And because I can't talk to you, I can't express how I feel. And so so we're going to look at some techniques on how to express how we feel without being offensive. And we're going to look at how sometimes we're defensive, we're offensive in our communication, because, when, especially us women, when we're angry, everybody going to know about it, right? The kids, the grand uncle, I don't care if who's looking, like, listen, when we blow the top, we blow the top. And so we got to practice these techniques so we can, get better at being married. Because listen, we're married, we're Christians, and we're married for life. So we might as well be happy about it, right? All right. So let's get into some of these types of techniques. Nonverbal communication is the act of conveying information without the use of words. So it might involve using certain facial expressions, hand gestures, eye contact, physical proximity. And there are many other nonverbal cues that you can send to your spouse. But what I want you to really pay attention to your nonverbal cues, like, because see, sometimes we readily see other people's nonverbal cues, but we don't see ours, so this is some of the things that's going to help you. Like I said, I could give you a whole course on communication, but I don't want to do that. I just want to give you the things that's going to help you. So number one, pay attention to your own behaviors. Notice the gestures you use when you are happy versus when you are upset. Think about how you change the tone of your voice depending on the emotions that you're feeling. Because it's okay for you to be upset. It's okay for you to disagree. But remember, again, it goes back to the tone and the encoding the message and the sending the message, and then your spouse decoding the message and the feedback that is coming to you. So if you are the initiator of some of the message that you're communicating, you want to make sure that you are communicating it with less emotions. You can be angry and you can say, listen, I'm not ready to talk about this right now. Let me talk about it when I am less upset. Okay, so pay attention to your own behaviors, because listen, ladies, we control the house even though we're not the head. Because like someone once said, Pastor Angela said, my husband said, I'm the head, but I'm the neck. I turn that head whichever way, right? And so it's really true. We control the temperature in our house. So be mindful of that with your words. Pay attention to your behaviors. What type of behavior makes your spouse angry? And communicate to him or her what kind of behavior makes you angry. All right. Become a student of others. That I like this because really, it's basically just watching people's facial expression, learning, their body language, and see what they're communicating, because it's really helpful when you're around others. You can see their nonverbal communication. Listen, you don't need a degree to see that. If somebody's angry, if somebody's kind of giving you the cold shoulder, you kind of see that, that person don't want to talk right now. Well, it's the same way for your spouse. Become a student of your spouse. If you want a happy marriage, study your spouse. Listen, I study my husband. I know what he likes. I know what he doesn't like. I know what's going to take him off and what's not going to take him off, right? So become a student of your spouse. Learn his behavior. And here's the thing, as teach him your behavior, or her your behavior. Like, this is, maybe I like this thing and I don't like that thing, so you may not have to go overboard and teach him everything. Or I like this, I like that, I don't like that, I don't like that. Just basically teach him what I'm teaching you right now. Say, hey, honey, I would rather you pay attention to me and learn the things that I like and this, and dislike, so that way, we won't be getting in as much fights or whatever. And then look for incongruent nonverbal cues. Don't say that you're fine and slam the cupboard doors to show, that you're really upset. Like, I'm fine, the door is slammed. No, you're not fine. Those nonverbal cues are telling you're with your mouth, you're saying that you're fine, and then the nonverbal cue is you slamming doors or walking out the house or getting upset. You're doing your nonverbal cues are basically not equal to your verbal cues. You're saying you're fine, but you're displaying total different opposite behavior. So those are some of the ways that we communicate our emotions non-verbally. And then so one of the things that you want to do is make sure you think before you act. Train yourself to stop and think before you act. Because remember, the Bible says that we are one, and whatever hurts you is supposed to hurt her or him. And if it's not hurting, then you guys have to get to a place where we go back to our communication model. And I have another model for you that's going to help you understand a little bit better when we get a little bit later in the study. But you got to go back to that communication model and say, how did I communicate? What did I encode in the message that I communicate to my spouse? How did my spouse receive the message? Because you're going to know how he or she received the message based on the response that you got back, right? So make sure you train yourself to stop and think before you act, right? And then ask before you assume, because certain types of nonverbal communication can mean different things in different cultures. And so just because, somebody slams a door, it doesn't really mean that they were upset. It could mean something different, So those are some of the nonverbal cues that you want to look at to help you understand, nonverbal behaviors. All right. The next one is defensive communication. Defensive communication in relationships can be really damaging, and it can lead to increased arguments and uncertainties and stress and even distrust, right? And defensive communication is when an individual reacts in a defensive manner in response to self-perceived flaw or threats from outsiders. So defensive responses can be triggered by external events and feelings of anxiety, insecurity, and sensitivity, and often in circumstances where people feel negatively evaluated, controlled, or persuaded by others. And so basically people begin to defend themselves in the communication. So like maybe somebody, maybe my husband said, Charmaine, I don't like your hair that way. Immediately I perceive that as a flaw or some sort of imperfection. And the reason why I perceived it like that, it was because of my past insecurities that were not dealt with. And so if my husband were to say, Charmaine, I don't like your hair like that, or Charmaine, I don't like when you wear that color lipstick, or, certain things, because you see, to be honest, you wear your hair and you wear your clothes to please your spouse. I mean, it's kind of, you please yourself, but you have to please your spouse at the same time. If he's going to go out with you and feel like you're dressing like a you know what, and he's feeling uncomfortable, because I have dealt with people like that, that they're walking beside their wives, they're not dressed the way they want them to be dressed. And I give you this quick story of Pastor Benny Hinn. Said when he got married to his wife, he didn't like any of her clothes that she wears. So he said, I don't like your clothes. He told her, just brand new married, he said, I don't like your clothes. So she said, okay, well, buy me new ones. And so he said, okay, they went shopping for new clothes. And so she could have gotten defensive and said, well, what's wrong with my clothes? But, so it's like, again, it goes back to how you communicate your information, and is your spouse responsive to what it is that you are trying to communicate to them. Basically, don't defend yourself. Don't get so defensive in your communication. Find out what it is that your spouse is really saying, because it might not have anything to do with any flaws or any threats or anything like that. But sometimes people, if you come to me and say, well, Charmaine, you didn't wash the dishes today, you didn't make the bed, you didn't do the housework, what kind of wife are you? Well, we're going to talk about that. That's kind of offensive communication that's coming up next. But then based on what you said to me, I am going to be defensive. I'm going to come back at you defensive. Why would you say something like that? So again, don't see your communication or listen to your communication through the flaws, the difficulties, or the emotional issues or relational concerns. See it for what it really is. And like even the researchers, they said people are sensitive not only about their own flaws or the flaws of, but they're sensitive about the flaws of others close to them. So like if you talk to about their people's family, they can get even upset about that. Like, oh, you talk about my children? Don't talk about my children like that. Oh, you talk about my husband? Don't, because you remember you're in a marriage, and sometimes people you might have difference of opinion, like like the in-laws, for example. And so people might be sensitive about the flaws of their in-laws because they feel like their in-laws represent them. And so there's like a shield there. So whenever communication is taking place, you're hearing the information through the flaws that were already perceived there. And now you feel like everybody is attacking your family or talking about your family. Because you already have these self-perceived flaws or threats and our insecurities and our anxieties or whatever the case may be. So now when you hear something that kind of comes close to that thing that is affecting your family, the defensive walls go up, and so no communication is able to get through. So even as you're communicating as a spouse, there are trigger words that can trigger that defensive wall to go up. So there are times when I even get defensive, even in my own marriage. Like my husband will say something and immediately my wall go up, like, what did you say? Why did you say that? Why did you say it like that? What did you mean by that? So when you see you're responding like that, those are indications to you to tell you that you are in defensive communication mode, right? And let me see. Okay. So, before I get to offensive, so here are some strategies that might help you when you're conversating in sometimes it might be something that might be sensitive for your spouse, and you have to be mindful for those sensitive things, because listen, that's something that I am still learning, because listen, I just say it like it is, and y'all pray for your sister over here, because I just say it like it is. But if you in communication model is saying foster a safe place for your conversation. So first of all, if you want to communicate something sensitive, you want to make sure that you have time and you have attention, and it's not rushed, and it's not in a place where you're not able to give your full attention, or you're not able to get the person's full attention. So make sure that you're in a safe place. You're in a good zone where you can talk about what you really want to talk about. And also watch for your own reaction, right? Because, and these kind of information is going to help you not just in your marriage, but also in your relationship with others. Watch your own reaction when people speak anything negative about you. Watch how you react. And then don't pull away from those. Don't pull away. Don't just say, okay, forget it. I'm done talking. I'm shutting up and shut down and shut everybody down. That's not a good way to end your conversation, because you're leaving with things inside of you that are unresolved. As much as possible, if you can resolve your situation, resolve it before you walk away. And also keep an open mind because sometimes when you're in defensive communication, people are really not talking about what you think they are talking about. It's just based on your preconceived idea of what you think people mean. And so that's why, sometimes, you'll find yourself arguing with your husband or your wife over something that really, that's not what they meant. And listen, I can't tell you how many times that has happened to me and my husband. We're arguing over simple little things. Well, he said this, he didn't mean this, I mean that, and he meant this. And it was just because one of us or both of us did not keep an open mind. All right. And then the next thing with defensive communication, don't let criticism take over, because once they might say something about, okay, well, your family is like this, and that's the whole lot. No, you're starting to criticize an entire family, or, no, I see the way you are because everybody in your family does da 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 da. And then now it falls into criticism. And now instead of de-escalating the situation, you are escalating the situation. All right. And so be careful of that. Watch when it reaches to there. You have the will. You can shut your mouth anytime you want to, right? You can do that. All right. And then focus on conflict resolution, not a debate. Here's the thing with us women, most of the women, we always want to debate something, and we always want to win. Like, listen, I'm not in it right now to win it. Sometimes we don't always have to be in it to win it. We can be in it to resolve the conflict. Let's resolve the conflict. Because you see, we are one, a husband and wife, according to the Bible, we are one. So if I win and he lose, then I lose, because it's, if he wins, I win. If I lose, he lose. So let's resolve. This is not about winning a debate. It's about finding a resolution to whatever conflict we're facing. All right. And then the next thing is stay calm. Oh, geez, Wayne, I have to put his hand on my head. Lord Jesus, sometimes stay calm. We don't always stay calm, but that's one of the things. If you want to assert your information or your position on a particular subject that you're dealing with as a wife or a husband, if you're not calm, yelling and screaming is not going to get you the assertiveness or the authoritative voice on the subject. You want to be calm and you want to assert your position, like, this is my position. I'm not angry, I'm not mad, I am just asserting my position. And remember, I'm not trying to win anything right now. I'm just trying to resolve a conflict. So this is my position. And, if I'm asserting my position, I'm expecting you to come with a counter that will show me that I am wrong or I am right. And if you see where you're wrong, accept it and move on. That's how you resolve conflicts. And again, I already said this before, don't leave anything unfinished. Don't walk away, unless it's finished. And if you have to walk away, say, let's finish the conversation at another time, because I see that both of us are angry. Maybe we're not getting anywhere with it. So let's finish it at another time. But that leaves the door to say that, listen, we're going to talk about this at a better time. We're not just pulling away and saying we're never going to discuss it. We're going to talk about it, but maybe now is not the time. All right. And then if you have to disagree, make sure you disagree wisely. Like, just say, oh, forget it, I'm done with it. Just walk away and have an attitude. Okay, let's disagree wisely. So an example of that is like, okay, I see that what you're saying, that I shouldn't have spent so much money on the credit card because I see the high interest that's accumulating or something like that. But it's already done. And find a way to say it nicely so that it doesn't come off as, you're disagreeing. Well, I bought what I wanted, and that's it. Too bad. So sad. Deal with it. You know, we're disagreeing wisely. Maybe somebody said, okay, well, I don't want you to go to the state fair. Maybe the wife or the husband's like, listen, I don't want you to go drinking with your friends or something. And you know, it becomes a disagreement. Well, let's agree in the areas before it reached to that stage. Like, how do you want me to handle this situation when it arises? Do you want me to because, like, for example, your husband's out with all his friends watching football or drinking or doing whatever he's doing. That's not a time to walk up to your husband and say, you know, don't drink anymore, or don't, or start, you know, annoying. Wait till he gets home, and then you talk about it. And if this keeps happening, maybe you need to call in intervention. Maybe, listen, we all need counselors. We all need help to help us figure out our lives. You know, all of us have issues. I need you, you need me. We all need each other. Call somebody and say, listen, we're having this disagreement, and we need help to resolve it. All right. And then the next one is discuss your problems as they arise, because you don't want to let it continue to build up in your heart until it build up resentment. Many people, that's what they do. They keep it in their heart and it continues to build up resentment. And there was a time when that was happening, when my, you know, like if I say something to my husband and he didn't want me to talk about it, I would not talk about it. And you know me, I like to talk. So it's an issue when I can't talk. So I said, homeboy, listen, if I can't tell you what's going on, there's going to be some resentment in my heart. So let me tell you what's going on, and then you deal with it. And so that's once I told him that never happened again, where, you know, he just let me talk. I guess the man just get used to me talking. So, oh, geez, Wayne, I'm so sorry for you. And then let's just agree to stop this behavior. You know, make a decision. Like if you say this behavior is harmful to my spouse, she doesn't like it, he doesn't like it, then make a choice. Decide to stop doing that thing, whatever that thing is. Don't get into a space where you're saying, well, I'm my own person, I can do whatever I want. No, you're not your own person. Once you said, I do, you are not I anymore. You are us, you are we, and you are they, and you are them. You're not I. There's no I anymore. It's until death do you part. So if this thing is affecting your spouse and it's affecting your home, causing you to have an unhappy home, it would make sense for you to agree to stop that behavior. All right. And then offensive communication. I think I kind of touched this a little bit already. And some of those same strategies for defensive communication will kind of help you. Offensive communication, I don't really have too much information on it. There's not much information out there on it. But offensive communication is where someone willfully and repeatedly disturb the peace or quietness or privacy of someone. So, for example, you know, accusatory, blaming, you know, settling a score, revenge, intent to cause harm. So when you decide to communicate, I can't wait for him to come home, I'm gonna say this and I'm gonna say that, and you know, this is different from defensive. Is when you are defending yourself against what your husband said or your wife said. Offensive is when you are the one who is causing the offense. And many times people don't hear this, but one of the main things that I get complaints about is, my wife is blaming me for such and such. My husband is blaming me because this happened. And so that blame thing, it's like, it's horrible to me. It's like a sense of revenge. Like, okay, so my wife, say somebody said my wife, they racked up the credit card bills and now we can't buy a car or something. So it was my wife. You know how, no, all of that fault lays down on the lap of the wife. No, she can't, we need a car, we can't get a car, and it's the wife's fault because she didn't pay the credit card bills. So now, do you see how offensive that is? Like, oh, it's your fault because you shouldn't have gone to the mall and spend so much money on whatever you spend money on. And so that blame thing, it's very I want to say it's kind of like it's secretive. It just kind of slips in there without you really noticing. And then and you can look a ton of different things. If you look through your own marriage, you can see times when your spouse blame you for things that really it's not you, and even if it's you, that's not the way that it's supposed to be communicated, because anybody can make a mistake. I can make a mistake, my husband can make a mistake. I am not going to blame my husband for something that he has no control over. Maybe he made a decision that was not the best choice, and then we end up in a bad situation. Well, it's still not time to blame him, because whenever he made the choice, he was making the decision with our best interest at heart. And whenever you make a decision with the best interest at heart, what happens is sometimes you'll get down the road and realize that was not the right choice. Life is like a multiple choice. Sometimes you're going to you're going to fill in the blank, fill in the little bubble, and turn out it's the wrong answer. So no, you don't want to blame your spouse because they picked the wrong answer on a multiple choice, because the next day it might be you picking the wrong choice on that multiple choice answer. All right. And so don't willfully try to disturb I know people like this. I know actual married people that do this, willfully disturb the other person's peace and quiet. They know that this thing, if they say this thing, is going to set them off. And it's like, I'm like, man, you just like to set off your wife, or lady, you just like to set off your husband. And sometimes that happens for a reason, maybe because of intimacy. They don't want to be intimate that time, so they just start a fight, start a fuss. And this communication was intended to be offensive. And you can't do that you can't have a happily ever after if you're starting communication with offense in your heart already. So my I guess solution for that would be to again go back to our communication model. Think about the message that you are encoding before you begin to speak. Think before you speak. All righty. So let's revisit our communication model again. Pay attention to your pitch, how loud, how soft, and then your tone, which is conveying your emotion, your facial expression, your body language. And listen, all of it has something to say. And we all have something to say, and we got to be mindful of how we're saying what we're saying. So again, here's your communication model. I told you I was going to share with you again. Remember, you're encoding the message, and then you're sending the message through whatever channel, whether it's a text message that you're sending to your husband, or you're talking to him on the phone, or you're talking to him face to face, or your nonverbal communication of "don't touch me, not tonight, honey." And then inside of that communication channel, there is something called noise. Noise is basically the screen through which he is receiving the message, because okay, well, I rubbed her back and she pulled away, and well, maybe she is having maybe she had a bad day, or I said this to her and she snapped at me. Why did she snap at me? So those are the noises that are actually being transmitted with the message, that you're pretty much just wanting to say, listen, I had a bad day today. I'm tired. I'm on edge. Leave me alone. And then the noise in there is like, man, maybe she's menstruating. Maybe she's going through an emotional change, or maybe the kids think, what did I do? Like, am I not man enough for you? Or, so all of these noises in there that he is trying to decode. So again, pay attention to how you speak. And then listening. This is one of the biggest problems in communication. Nobody listens. Everybody listen whenever, and I know I'm guilty of this. My husband is listening. He can tell you this. I am guilty. Whenever we're listening, guess what we're doing? We're just waiting for the other person to shut up so we can start talking. Be honest. Don't lie to me. Be honest. You all know, You're just listening so that you're just waiting for that person to just be quiet so I can tell you what I really think. No, listen, you got to listen. If there's different kinds of listening, and I don't think I can break down every single one of them for you, but informational listen. So basically listen to gain information. Why is my husband speaking this way? What is he trying to communicate to me? Okay, so when you gain the information now, you can decide how you're going to you're basically decoding this information. So you're listening above the noise, because remember, I told you there's noise in even right now, there's noise in this communication that I'm trying to get to you. Like, you may be thinking about your bills. You may be thinking about your hard day at work today. You may be thinking about, I'm tired. You may be thinking, when is Charmaine going to shut up? There is noise in this communication. And so you have to be drowning out that noise. It's the same way when you're listening to your spouse, especially when you are having a disagreement. You got to listen for the information. What is the emotion that he is giving to you, or she is giving to you? Because there are emotions behind the information that he's trying to give to you. So you're getting this. The first thing you're going to see is his emotion. He's angry. Okay, why is he angry? What's the information behind there? So I need to not take up the anger right now, but I need to gain the information. What caused him to be angry? Maybe pre-construct from, maybe he is a jealous person. Maybe he's a person that's how his upbringing from, his past, his childhood. That's how he was raised. Why is he communicating this way? Why is this happening? So you're listening to hear what it is that you're hearing, the noise, the channel through which whatever he's communicating to you. Like, some man come home, they want their dinner ready on the table, and if their dinner is not ready, that poor wife is in a mess. They're gonna be in trouble. And that was just because of how he was raised. Maybe if you listen for the information and get to the place where you can teach your husband, because listen, women, we have a lot of pulling power. We just don't know how to use it. Right? Like, teach your husband, not seduce your husband, but in a loving way, because a good husband listens to his wife, and a good wife listens to their husband. All right. So listen to gain information. And when you gain the information, use it to create constructive communication, so that you can communicate back to your husband or your wife in a way that they will listen. Discriminative listening. This is a listening where I partially listen, and I say I because I've done this, and all of you all, if you are telling the truth, you've done this. You listen to what you listen to hear what you want to hear. So you listen for bits and pieces of the information, and then you drown out other pieces of the information. You are never going to solve any kind of problems like that. And then there are biased listening. Biased listening, it's the same, almost the same thing like discriminative listening, but biased listening kind of comes from, basically, if you're in favor of one person over another. Whereas discriminative, it could be yourself that just prefer, this is what I prefer. Bias, because you're talking about this person or this situation, and I prefer this person. So it's like, you're already listening with a biased intention. You're not really listening with a clear mind. And then sympathetic listening. Sometimes when your spouse is communicating their emotions, their feelings, people don't listen. They, maybe you're like, well, she'll get over that, or he'll get over that. There's no sympathy in your listening, and therefore you cannot have any empathy either. So sympathy and empathetic and therapeutic listening goes together, because when you're listening to your spouse's emotion. Basically, like I said, you cannot communicate without emotion. You have your emotion in there. So if they're coming to you and they're saying, well, I'm going through a tough time at work, I don't know how much longer I can do this, and then you don't care. You just go on. Life goes on. We just got to figure this out. And then one day the woman broke And you're like, woman, what happened to you? Well, dude, I done told you that I can stand this, that. And then you like, listen, you were not listening to me. And see, that's where the sympathetic and the empathetic listening comes in, because we have to listen with our emotions as well. Because if you're not caring for your spouse's emotions, it's going to have a tremendous effect on your intimacy. Because listen, when I'm emotionally wound up, dude, don't touch me, because my emotions are all over the place. Don't expect to come near me. Okay. All right. And then comprehensive listening. That's a different, this is you listen for everything. You listen basically for the emotions, you're listening for the information, you're listening for the pre-construct basically, why is this person the way they are? You know how he is. So that's the comprehensive listening. You're listening to everything that is being said, and you're taking in the emotion, and you're taking in the basic, the past behaviors, and you understand that this is the way the person is because of what they went through. So now you're comprehensively listening to everything, right? And then I talked to you already about the critical listening is just when you're listening to get your part. Like, listen, I don't care what you said. I know what I'm going to say. I can't wait for you to stop talking so that I can say what I want to say. And that's the critical listening. All right. So I hope those are helping you to understand how to listen. And then here's one thing that really helps me. One time I was at a job where one of my, I was out, listen, I was like, I don't know, dynamite or something, TNT, you touch me, I go off. Lord, oh Jesus. And so, the lady, she taught me, she said, listen, respond versus reacting. And so that helps me, instead of reacting to something, take some time to formulate your response. Okay, think about what you're going to say before you say it, and don't just jump up and say whatever comes to your mouth, because those are the things that get me in trouble. And I'm telling you, sometimes it's hard to get back out of those troubles. Oh geez, what's my screen going away? Okay, all right. And then also we have effective and defective communication. So sometimes in effective communication, you have, pre-constructs of communication, like you basically that they're going to say, well, she's from the country. That's how they talk. That's how they behave. Well, we don't have to live in that. We come out of that. We grow out of that. We can learn and we can adapt. Right? We learn what we communicate based on what our parents taught us, based on what experience taught us. And so sometimes people make excuse for themselves and they said, well, this is just the way I am. No, you can change. If it's affecting your marriage, if it's affecting your life, you can change. All right, because what happens, it leads to defective communication, and defective communication basically communicates your insecurities. And listen, you don't want to have insecurities anyway, because they're not good. Insecurity is not a warm blanket. You need to get rid of it. And how do you get rid of it? You identify, what am I insecure about? Some people are insecure about their looks. Some people are insecure about, I guess just insecure about how the way people perceive them. And so if you're at the place where you're insecure about that, you may want to talk to somebody about that. Like, be vulnerable, be willing to be vulnerable. And, if you're not willing to be vulnerable, then that means you're governed by a spirit of fear. And God did not give us a spirit of fear, right? I don't want to be governed by a spirit of fear. Because if I'm afraid somebody's going to hurt my feelings, and so I'm not going to deal with what is dealing. No, that devil is a liar. That's how he keeps me bound, because I'm insecure about my looks or about my background. So I don't want somebody, finding out something about me and talking about me. Listen, I get to the place where I'm like, devil, I don't care. I couldn't care less. Listen, get all the skeleton out of the closet, and I'll help you sort the bones too. Okay, if you want me to help you sort them out, I can tell you where each bone go, because you think I'm going to keep a skeleton up in the closet and it's getting the power over my life, and I'm not able to be free and speak how I want to speak and live my life how I want to live it, because of some insecurities are really just a nice word for fear. Fear is of the devil. Who wants that? And then resentment. When you, like I said, if you're not allowed to communicate, then you're gonna be full of resentment. Girl, you're gonna hate him. You're gonna have some resentment in your heart, and it's just like, resentment is a nice word for hate, by the way. You hate what he does, and eventually you begin to hate him if it's not dealt with. And that's how divorce happens, because listen, I can't stand it anymore. I did everything that I can do with it, and I'm done. All right. So some of the things that you can do is set expectations, right? Basically, talk to your husband or your wife at a time when you're not having a problem. Don't wait for a problem to come up before you start setting expectation. And that's one of the things that I did earlier on in my marriage. You know, when I just married to my husband, I said, let's talk about everything. Right. And boy, he said yes, he didn't know what he was into. Well, I talk about everything. I'm so sorry for him. And then well, I think God did that. God blessed us the way he blessed us, because I like to talk and he doesn't like to talk. And I think he half listens sometimes when I'm talking, and I guess half listen, but I make sure he hears me, like, do you hear that? Yes, I heard that. What did I say? And it's like, Charmaine, I heard you. Okay. So those are times when you're not really having you're not having a spat or anything. You're just setting expectation, communicate what you want. Like I talk to him about what I want, what I expect from him. He talks, and I say, listen, this is a time that you need to tell me what you want from me. Because in the past, what we have done was he would wait till I communicate something about that he doesn't like. And then he's like, well, you did this and you did. And I'm like, but you never told me that I did this. Well, now I'm telling you no. Well, why did you wait till when I'm disagreeing with you to bring it up? You should have told me when we were setting expectations. And so, we had to get to that place where we start communicating what we want from each other, right? And then give each other time to implement whatever expectation you set. So just because I told my husband, like, hey, I prefer if you tell me ahead of time what, rather than wait till we get into an argument to spring something on me, he might do it a time or two again. So then at that point, I'm going to have to go back to him and tell him, like, listen, remember last month when we were setting expectations, we were talking in the car, because setting expectation doesn't mean that we have to have your board meeting or something. We could be driving in the car and I'm saying, Wayne, I don't like when you talk to me like that, or like in front of people, you say this or you say that, so make sure next time when we're, around guests or something, you don't say this or that. And then maybe he did it again. And like that time you want to slap him, right? but you wait till you get home. You can slap him. Just wait till you get home. Just kidding. But so when you're back home again, you said, honey, remember that thing that I told you that I didn't like? Yeah. What? Sometimes they don't even remember. Yeah, that thing. Remember I told you I don't like when you say this, and that, and you did it again. And I just wanted to remind you, because remember that we're setting expectations that we're not going to do this, and that. Okay. And so you give him time to implement. And if he does it again, you keep reminding him until it becomes a thing where now he knows that I don't like this and I don't like that. And then you also have to follow through with the same expectation when your husband says something that you don't like, or does something that remember, he's expecting you to adjust your course, adjust your behaviors as well. So be mindful that it's not a one-way street, it's a two-way street. So while you're setting expectation, he's setting expectation, right? I'm telling you, if you practice these communication things, you're going to live happily ever after. And here is the intimacy part. Listen, if you are able to get through those little communication techniques that I just shared with you, you're going to see your intimacy level grow, because communication breakdown is when your communication breakdown, there is no trust. And again, the resentment and the insecurities are building up, because not only are you carrying insecurities from your past, if that's not dealt with, but because you can't trust your husband now or your wife now, there are insecurities. So now you're dealing with insecurity issues, and you're dealing with resentment issues because you can't talk about it. You have unresolved issues that are, it's preventing you from having that 100% intimacy with your spouse. And so to deal with this, you want to create confidence, and you want to create trust and transparency, and demonstrate love and concern, and well, we're gonna get to the others right now. I mean, after this, but demonstrate love and concern. So if you want to, in your communication, make sure you're demonstrating love and concern. Make sure you're creating a culture of confidence and trust and transparency in your marriage. You don't want to be hiding things from your spouse, because this one person I know a person, they divorced because their wife was very secretive, and I'm like, oh, jeez, you divorced because he felt like his wife had things that she was hiding from him, and he couldn't figure it out, so he figured he can't trust her, and they're divorced for just because there were no transparency in the marriage. All right, some ways to create confidence, like you can compliment your wife, your spouse, your husband, clothes, looks, and listen, don't give any false compliments, because some people say, do you like me in this? Do I look fat in this? Oh no, honey, you don't look fat. And the woman looks so fat, she looked like she's about to choke in that outfit. Don't be doing that to me. I said, Wayne, if the clothes don't look good, tell me it doesn't look good. And so the other day I was getting ready to go to a place, and I put on this pants. Wayne looked at me. He's like, aren't those pajamas? I said, Wayne, those are not pajamas. Okay, these are my warm pants that I choose to wear. And I said, does it look like something I can wear, go out? He's like, they look like you can wear them, but they look like pajamas. So he told me the truth. And I felt comfortable. He didn't really have a problem with me going out. He just told me that these clothes look like pajamas. Okay. So he's not giving me no false compliments over here. If I don't look good, I'm going to hear about it. All right. And then appreciate your differences. Okay. This is the other thing. I'm not here to change my husband. You are not there to change your wife. You are supposed to appreciate their difference. Now, I understand that there are some differences or some things that you might have to adjust if it's affecting you negatively and if it's affecting your spouse negatively. But don't think that you have to change every single thing about your wife or your husband. Come on. Because that's why you married her or him in the first place. If you think that you're going to have to change everything about their appearance, the way they talk, the way they care, like, listen, you probably should have married somebody else. I'm going to tell Wayne right up. Like, listen, if you think I should change everything about me, there are some things that I admit that I need to change, and I see that it's negative, it's false, it's impacting our marriage negatively. So I will adjust those things. But you can't expect, some people, you want me to change my face? I can't change that. There are certain things that you just can't change. So that you got to learn to appreciate what you cannot change and change what needs to be changed. And if it's something that you both can live with, hey, live with it and be happy. Because listen, it's about happily ever after, right? All right. Communicate commitments. So whenever you're committed to something, like, for example, like when I was going to school, I went to school. My entire marriage, I've been going to school, and my husband always support me going to school. Like, every time I'm about to sign up for anything, I'm letting him know that, listen, I am going to go into this. What do you think about this? And I always have his blessing to go into anytime I'm committed to something, because, that's going to take away time from him. It's going to take away time from our children. And whenever it takes away time from him or our children, I'm expecting him to take up the slack where I am not, because I am committed to something. Or it's the same with him, like he's expecting me to take up the slack when he's committed to going off and doing something and he can't be present. And so always communicate your commitments. And in another way to look at this is communicate your commitment to each other as well, right? So if you're committed to your husband, you're committed to your wife, you want to make sure that you're saying that. You don't have to get up every day and say, honey, I'm committed to you. Honey, I'm committed to you. But you want to make sure in some way you're communicating that, listen, I'm a one burner. I'm just married to you. I'm not looking at anybody else outside. It's just you, baby. So you're it. find a way to tell your spouse. Maybe for some people, they like flowers and they like cards and they like that kind of thing. Some people, it's just telling them, like, listen, my husband always tell me, like, you're my gem. I'm like, gem? Like what, which one? Like you got all different kinds of gems. So I don't know which one. I'm still a gem, right? At this point, I'm just a huge gem, I guess. I don't know which one. So anyways, communicate your commitment. Let your spouse know how precious you are. And I always tell my husband, you're my treasure. So you just little compliments, little things that you can say that, let them know that I am committed to you. You don't have to say I'm committed every day. Find some creative ways to tell your husband or your wife that you are committed. All right. And then another way you can tell that you can show appreciation when you're creating confidence and trust. You can just tell them how much they helped you. Like, listen, honey, I often say this to my husband. That's like, I don't know what I would be, how my life would have turned out if you weren't in my life. So I'm just so glad that you're very supportive of everything that I'm doing. Most husbands, they complain all the time about my wife and this and my wife. I never had my husband complain one day. And I do all kinds of stuff. I get into all kinds of things. I stay busy all the time. But I make commitment. I am committed to him, and I make time for him throughout the day, throughout the week. We have our own special time. But I've never had him tell me or complain like, you can't do this, or woman, you can't do that. Like, he's not afraid of my success. He's not afraid of helping me do anything that I need to do. So make sure, and I always tell him, I love that about you, that you don't put a muzzle over me. I feel free. I'm married to you, but I feel free to be me at the same time. So thank you for that. And I make sure that I communicate that to him. And don't lie. Listen, if you don't like something, communicate it, but do it nicely. Okay. And remember, do not be defensive or offensive when you're communicating whatever you don't like. Be more like, make it like a formal way, and there were some times when I had to text my husband because whatever I had to say, it could come off because of my tone and my body language. So I was like, okay, well, how best do I communicate this to my husband? So he might be in the other room, but I text him on my phone and I tell him this and I tell him that, and he will text me back with a nice calm text, and as usual, and he will say whatever he needs to say. So, don't lie, make it the truth, and find creative ways to communicate difficult things. Even if it's difficult, you need to be able to verbalize it, whether it's verbally, written, oral, or written, or some way. Find a way to let your spouse know how you're really feeling, because that's what's going to really create the confidence and the trust. Because if you don't become vulnerable with your spouse, you feel like you can't become vulnerable, then that's an indication that there is no confidence, there is no trust in the marriage. And love and trust is the main two ingredients in a marriage. And if you don't have trust, your intimacy is out the door. All right, we're wrapping up. So the emotional and physical intimacy. Actually, this should have said 6 types of intimacy. Oh, actually, I have it there, just in the wrong place. Okay, so I'm gonna rush this because I'm a little bit over time, but you got to understand, I'm condensing a 6-week marriage course into 3 days. So, geez, well, all right. Let's keep going. Intimacy involves a deep sense of closeness and trust. Emotional intimacy, that's one. We have intellectual intimacy, functional intimacy, spiritual intimacy, physical intimacy, and sexual intimacy. And see, when people hear intimacy, their minds immediately go to sex. And before sex happens, you have a whole bunch of other things to get through before you can really have intimacy with your spouse. So emotional intimacy, it's basically when you share your moments of doubts, fear, sadness, pain, and your partner understands what you're experiencing. So basically, I can go to my husband with any kind of emotion. That's the thing that I'm telling you with my husband. I can just go to him, tell him what I'm feeling, and he knows what I'm feeling. Well, there are a few times that he didn't get it right away. And I'm like, dude, what's wrong with you? I'm feeling this kind of way and I'm feeling that kind of way. And but the thing about him, about my husband, is that I can go to him with any kind of fears or doubts or concerns or pain, whatever I can. In other words, I can be vulnerable with him. And I know that he's not going to judge me wrongfully. Right. And so, and even if I had that kind of fear that my husband might judge me wrongfully, I still have to go to him with my insecurities, with my fears, because I need to be able to build that trust. I need to be able to connect with you emotionally, because if I don't connect with you emotionally, eventually, there's going to be a pulling away. It's like when you're not connected emotionally, there's like a little, I call it like a little rip in your intimacy. And if that's continue to stay there, it's going to continue till it rip and rip and rip apart. So you want to make sure you work on that emotional intimacy. I tell people, like, listen, you're not ready. Some men is like, I'm the head of the household. Like, listen, if you can't take care of your wife's emotion, you're not ready to be the head of the household. If you're not spiritually intimate with your wife, you're not ready to be the head of the household. And so you have to be able to connect in all of these 6 ways, because you need to have 100% trust and openness for you to experience all of all what intimacy involves, right? And then the next thing is intellectual intimacy, knowledge sharing. Do you know that people go apart because, some people can become more knowledgeable than the other? Like like, this is a real thing. Like, people, because somebody may go to college and they may get a little higher education than another person, they kind of, pride themselves into feeling like, no, I'm better than this person because I know information that they don't know. And I used to be like that. Like, sometimes I'm like, well, why don't they know it? And then I realized, well, duh, I've experienced things. I learned things that they didn't know. And if I didn't learn these things that they didn't know, it doesn't mean I would have just been like them. So I don't need to, laud the knowledge that I have over somebody else, because without God giving me the opportunity to get the education that I had, I wouldn't be able to know these things that I know. So intellectual intimacy can be, when one is higher in intellect than our knowledge than the other, it can create an intimacy gap, because you're discussing things like, I could be discussing things with my husband and he has no idea what I'm talking about. So you have to be mindful of that. No, listen, if your husband is an engineer and you are a lawyer or a nurse or so forth, you're probably, your intellect are going to be totally different. So my solution to that is to find the common knowledge right where you all can share knowledge and information, and without getting into each other's field. Because I don't need to be an engineer, okay? I'm a nurse. I don't need to be a lawyer, right? Because I am so that intellectual, that knowledge that you have, find a common area in where you can share information so that you can connect. Functional intimacy is to understand what each other likes to do. Okay. For example, like my husband, like, he likes to wash the dishes. So sometimes I let him do that. Like, if I leave some stuff in the sink and he will wash it up, like I wash it up, occasionally the kids might wash it up, or, so functionally know what your spouse like to do. If your spouse like to wash the kitchen floor and you don't like to wash the kitchen floor, basically, what are your functional things? Like, I like to do this, he likes to do that, and then you all work in sync with each other. And while you're doing that, you're building that listen, I love to see when my husband is doing things that I like for him to do and that he likes to do. I don't know, I get happy about that. Spiritual intimacy, sharing the same spiritual closeness. Like, there are people who are Muslim, there are people who are Christian, and they are in a relationship, and that's hard. People on Sunday morning, or whatever morning, worship morning, y'all are going to different places. Okay, and then not only that, but then you have a situation where your husband, you might be more spiritual. Some of us, we're more super spiritual than other people. And then it creates like a spiritual imbalance in our home because, oh, one person prayed too much, one person fast too much, one person read the Bible too much, this one too much, too much prayer, too much and then that, so you need to get to that level of some kind of level of understanding. You don't have to pray exactly like me. You don't have to pray as much as I do, but we have to have some kind of spiritual understanding in the spirit. So make sure that you're spending time talking about, sharing your spiritual experiences with your spouse. Poor Wayne, I'm telling you, every day I share everything Wayne, I had a dream about this. The Lord said this and the Lord said that. Oh my goodness. And so, sharing that spiritual intimacy, it's very, very important because it helps you to be on the same page, even if you're not on the same page. You know what I mean? All right. Physical intimacy, includes touching in a way that enhances feelings of closeness, like holding hands, rubbing the shoulder, rubbing the back. Sometimes, sometimes that's all I need, just hold my hand. Sometimes I just need a hug. Like I'm a hugger. I love to hug. So I'm always hugging my husband, for no reason, just hugging him for no reason. And so that bears, it's even if you're not sexually intimate, and hugging and touching, it creates that space of intimacy, right? And then many times when you're in the wrong communication, though, no, you're like, don't touch me, I don't want you to touch me right now. I'm not talking to you, and so that's when you know that something's wrong, because you see, right there with that physical, that no touching, then there's no sex. So we come to sexual intimacy. So the sexual intimacy is the physical act of sex with emotional closeness and trust. Sex by itself, it doesn't necessarily require intimacy, because sometimes people can have sex and there's no intimacy. People have just doing my wifely duty. I'm doing my husbandly duty. There's no intimacy in there. You're just doing an act. And so there's no emotion. It's just something that you do and you get it over with. And so you have to be careful, be mindful of those things, okay? And that is not interrupting your intimacy. Make sure in these 6 areas, if I were you, I would try to evaluate those 6 areas to see if there are any areas that you are lacking and anything that you can do. And after this, there will be question and answer, and you can always reach out to me and let me know if you have any questions there and if I can help you. So in your communication, if your communication your communication is affecting your marriage, whether you know it or not, and if you are hiding things from your spouse, it is impossible to have 100% trust in your marriage. And the reason why you continue hiding things from your spouse is because you do not trust him or her. And you'll never be able to be fully married if there are parts of your life that you keep secret or hidden from your spouse. Now, you must remember to communicate with empathy and sympathy and understanding, and don't practice any offensive or defensive communication. All right. And that's it for me. All righty. And if you have questions, I would like to hear them. If not, then that's all I have for you today.